everybody. It's the Spindle podcast with Marc and John.
Welcome to The Spindle, a podcast about 7-inch records. I'm Marc.
I'm John.
And in each episode, we talk about one 7-inch record, hopefully give you some insight into it that you haven't heard before. We both got into music in the 80s and 90s when 7 inches were super important, especially on indie labels. So that's the era we mostly draw from. But we sometimes pick some stuff earlier or later than that too. Either way, we try to keep it short to the point, just like 7 inches do. So this time around, we are going to talk about the Falls, the Chiselers back with Chillinist, or is it?
Chillinist.
Chillinist. This was released in February 1996 on Jet Records. A-side written by basically the whole band at the time, which is Marky Smith, Carl Burns, Stephen Hanley, Simon Wollstonecraft, Julia Nagel. And the B-side written by them, as well as Mike Bennett, the producer of the record, was credited with writing on that. Recorded at the Dairy in London in 1996. I assume as part of the sessions for the Light User Syndrome album.
Yeah, no.
No? Okay.
No. Keep
Okay,
going.
well, we can get into that
We'll get there.
but...
We'll get there.
So I'll just do the quick lineup for the single, which I think I've got right, but you can correct me if not. So it's Marky Smith vocals, Craig Scanlon on guitar, Brick Smith doing guitar and some vocals, Steve Hanley on bass, Julia Nagel keyboards, Simon Wollstonecraft on drums and keyboards, and Carl Burns also on drums. Is that all these people are on that at the same time? I guess.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And and the note, there's a note on the back of the 7-inch sleeve says this song is relevant to the recent experiences of Halifax Town Football Club.
They had been relegated the year before from one higher league to a lower one. So I think this is basically this is right after their major label experiences. And also, I think they'd had a couple records on Matador and stuff like that. So I don't know if he saw somewhat of it related to that. It's a funny. I mean, well, what else? What else are you going to read? Were there any facts that I jumped in on?
Not really. That's pretty much all of it. I mean, there's also. Go ahead.
The producer Mike Bennett at the time was just some rando that Mark Smith had met and jumped in with both feet. And Bricks had been back. This was the second record that she was on after Cerebral Caustic. And her contributions are all fantastic. The recording took apparently 8 months to make this single. And I don't know, it really is funny to think of it. It's not just one song. So it's like a system of songs. So you've got, Chiselers, you've got the Chillinist, you've got Interlude, the Chiselers. Then there's also Dance Mix kicking around. And I think the idea is why I love this song is like it's modular and you can add and subtract parts to it and move them around and stuff like that. There's a Peel session version that's more sort of straightforward. Sounds almost like a Britpop song on that one.
Oh, wow.
In a good way, like if Britpop were good. And just really, and then the live versions are all crazy and all over the freaking map. And sometimes the awkward interlude part will go on forever. And, the Chiselers are here, that whole part. And that'll go on and on. And so I think one of the reasons I chose this is I love the idea. It's not just really a song. And he did this multi-part thing with some other songs, like 50-Year-Old Man is like this too, where it's never really played the same way live twice. It's made up of all these segmented parts. There's a big banjo interlude. And this song seems like a shift. Like he used to do longer songs in the beginning, like Garden and things like that. then kind of got away from that for a while, it seemed like, where there weren't those hyper long story songs like NWRA. And going into the major label thing, there's no real long songs on those records, particularly. Infotainment Scan and stuff. There's none of those long things. And this seems like a way to come back. Well, I want to make a longer piece of music, but I don't want to tell a dumb story again. He seems to have pared down his lyrics. They're more minimalist now versus 83. And so
Right.
it's like, how can I make a longer, interesting track that isn't just me blabbing? And so you take all these chunks up and it's very segmented. You've got Julian Nagel, who's a programmer. You've got Brix, who's an incredible rhythm guitarist, and absolutely hammers it through this whole song. Simon Wollstonecraft's a human drum machine. So meshes very well with programming and is a programmer himself. So no hiccups there. Carl Burns may be playing anything because he often played guitar during these days or bass sometimes and stuff like that. So if they were down a guitarist, he would play guitar or he'd play double drums. Hard to tell what he's doing on this. Craig Scanlon quit during this recording.
Okay.
He apparently quit because during the recording, he had recorded a clarinet part. And when he came back to hear the mix, the clarinet part had been wiped. And so that was the last straw for him. And so he quit.
Wow.
Others in other, because now there's 9 million fall books. Generally, people admitted that he seemed to have lost his enthusiasm in general for what was going on. Partly tired out by Smith, who was being particularly truculent during this era. But also, man, it's got to be, you're only going to make so much money at that job.
Right.
And you have to have people who are patient because you're always going to be on the road. The fall would be particularly difficult because it is a full-time thing. And you have to write material, you have to go to practice all the time, recordings, BBC sessions. And it would seem like a lot of work for only so much remuneration, And he
Right.
wrote a lot, so he probably got publishing money, which would be, how much for a fall member, right?
Hmm.
And I could also see that just being like, I'm done. On a general galactic level. Smith fired him technically with a letter that said he had failure to maintain his amps or something like that, or this really cryptic letter that his slovenly appearance and all this kind of stuff. But then I'm pretty sure if you've ever heard the song Dr. Buck's Letter, it opens with the couplet, I lost my temper with a friend, mocked him and treated him with rudeness. And though I tried to make amends, I walk a dark corridor. I think that's probably about Craig Scanlon. It may
Oh,
also be a
wow.
little bit about Steve Hanley because um, he asked Scanlon to come back to the band at certain points and probably realized, wow, I really did cross a couple of bridges while I was burning them, and then burned the river too,
Right.
and feels bad because he's a human being capable of reflection. But the Chiselers was the end of Craig Scanlon. That's the big, and the band itself was in a lot of turmoil at that time. At one point during this period, 3 ex Mark Smith paramours were in the band. Lucy Rimmer, Julia Nagel, and Brix Smith all
Hmm.
had been involved with him at some point, but were also professionally in the band, and that could be very weird.
Uh-huh.
And there's, I think, a lot of dissatisfaction creeping in. Like, Simon Wollstonecraft quit after not too long after this, a couple of years. Hanley, by 98, the whole band has dissolved. This is like 96. Like, so Brix is out, I think, by the beginning of the next year. And then by the following year, it's all of these people are out of the band.
Wow. Even Nagel.
Nagel's the only one that stayed. The
Okay, that's what I
newest
thought.
one
Because
in 96 is the only one
right.
that stayed.
Okay.
And then she
Yeah.
ended up quitting in 99,
Oh, okay.
2000, something like 2001,
Yeah.
2000, somewhere in there.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it's a
Yeah.
very weird fall time. And they did not have an American record deal.
Okay, that's
So this is
what that
right
makes sense.
after
Yeah.
the two, like Matador did Middle Class Revolt and Infotainment Scan.
Right. And
Right.
Cerebral Caustic,
And
right?
Cerebral,
Wasn't
no,
Cerebral
did
Caustic?
they do?
Oh,
No,
okay.
I don't think
No, I
they
think you're
did.
wrong.
I
Was
think
that
Cerebral
Beggars or
Caustic,
something?
No, I don't think it came out in the US. It's on
Oh, okay.
Permanent and Cog Sinister.
Okay. Hmm.
So it's ridiculous, isn't it? So
Yeah.
I think that contributed to the fall kind of went down in the US at that time a little bit too,
Right.
because they really are dependent on having their records consistently available in the US for people to be into them. They are a big market in the US for them comparatively. Like probably by the numbers, there'd be more fall fans in the US than in the UK just because there's
Yeah.
more people. But
Right.
they all during this time period, but they have to, it's the US. You have to stay there. You have to get in front of people's faces. I think he was like the last, isn't that around the time he did the show in DC where he passed out, had to be taken back
Right.
behind the stage,
Uh-huh.
right? And the band
Yeah.
continued instrumentally.
Uh,
So
yeah.
there's a
Yeah, and
lot going on.
it's funny to think that even at this point, which is like late 90s, it still mattered if you didn't have a label in America. I mean, I know the record was available, you could find it, but not nearly as easily as if they had been on Matador. Because I mean, I was looking at the little time frame here. So it's Infotainment Scan 93, Middle Class Revolt 94, Cerebral Caustic 95. I was familiar with all those records. Light User Syndrome in 96. I guess I knew that it came out, but I don't remember hearing it much. Then Levitate 97, Marshall Suite 99, Unutterable 2000. I heard all those records. So it is like this weird little
They
hole,
toured Levitate.
you know? Okay, that must be why.
That's the one. That's the one
Yeah.
where they got in the fights on stage.
Right, right, of course. Yep.
And
Yeah.
um yeah, Light User Syndrome, well, it was it's on Jet Records, which is ELO's label.
Oh, wow, I didn't know
And
that.
but
Yeah.
the other thing is it's part of the Trojan label, which is the dub reggae label. And so I don't the, I so when I listen to that album, so the Chiselers came out and it was of course a fucking flop. And the album is funny because there's a chunk of the album, there's a bunch of tracks at the end that seem to me not really fit with the album, like Last Chance to Turn Around, Last Exit to, that one, Last Exit Brooklyn, what's that called? The Ballad of Jay Drummer, this kind of shit. And it looks to me like they thought they'd get another single, like He Pep or Spine Track or something would be another single. And they made all these B-sides, but because Chiselers flopped so badly, no more singles, slap it all on the CD. We're done here. Thank you very much. Goodbye, the fall.
Right.
And that was so they didn't really promote that record. I have to admit, I found it in a record stores where I was like, oh shit.
He didn't know it was coming out.
No, there's a new fall
Yeah,
album.
that's
Wow.
crazy. Yeah,
And then
yeah.
I look at the cover and I'm like, where the fuck's Craig Scanlon?
Wow.
Because he's
Yeah.
not on the cover. And it's like one of the only ones that has I think it's the whole band on the cover. Is there another official fall album like that? He's like,
Right, that's true.
Craig's gone. Take a look.
Yeah. So that's as if the only point of putting the band on there is so you could see that he wasn't in the band anymore. That's
It
pretty funny.
worked.
Yeah.
One of my first
That's
posts on
funny.
Fallnet was like, what the fuck happened with Craig Scanlon?
Uh-huh.
And
Wow.
so this is during the early internet era too. Um, and yeah, it was an interesting time for the band, just really chaotic. Probably a lot of people, from what I understand in England, would say 97 was the nadir, that it didn't get any worse than that. One show he collapsed and then came back out with no shirt and then came back out with
Yikes.
some weird jacket on. He
Uh-huh.
supposedly threw a microphone stand at a sound man like a spear, according to Bricks, who got
Great.
furious at him and threw her guitar at him and started screaming at him and walked off the stage and didn't play the next show or that show and came back and finished
Wow.
the tour and then quit. But so he was later on, he's like, yeah, I let the whiskey get on top of me, I think he said.
Wow.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, that's
it happens, I guess. The
it
best of
does
us.
happen.
I was
Now,
poorly. I was poorly. I let the whiskey get on top of me. I swear. I think he said something like that.
and now the song itself, it's funny, I went to look at the annotated fall version. The annotated fall is not online anymore. That's
No,
crazy. The
no,
web
it's
archive has
insane.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's one of the great losses of our era is that's not up there. What the fuck?
Yeah, it's crazy. The Wayback Machine seems to have it in really good shape, though. I mean, you can still find everything on it, but that's crazy. And this just happened like last year, I guess. It
Yeah,
got,
there's some sort
yeah.
of hiccup with their servers, and that was that.
Oh, that's crazy.
It
But
is pretty
anyway,
crazy.
they have a lot to say about the song, and I'm not sure how much of it I can sum up, but like, what's your sense of what's going on lyrically?
Well, he loves to write these cryptic fall of British Empire sort of songs.
Mm-hmm.
And he's comparing the music business. The short, he keeps saying short, and he means it. And of course, the pun of like, uh, I'm a small person, but also I'm short the cash. I don't have the money. Always
Uh-huh.
need money. Stones are short, meaning they're always going for money. They need the money. They're always short the cash they think they should have. Pink Floyd are short. The Stones are physically short. Also,
Right,
they're,
right.
not the tallest guys in the world, a lot of that band. And but so I think that it's obviously a music industry sort of thing. The Chileism is like an apocalyptic kind of reference, but he's changed the words a bit. He's changed the letters of it and turned it into his own word. But it's like Christian apocalyptic thought of some sort, and
Wow.
and so I think what he's talking about in his own cryptic way is like the music industry is sort of eating itself on its quest for money. Even the biggest bands seem to always need cash somehow. For what? How much money do you need? And why these constant demands for profitability and stuff like that? It sounds stupid, but and um the ninth richest country in the world, bar none, which England is like, yeah, we're the greatest. It's like, yeah, we're the bottom of the top 10
Right.
from our empire, right? This is during the Britpop era.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of this kind of residual patriotism and stuff like that, that I think that's a little bit of a comment on that as well. You know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's a very British, in its own way, it's a very British song.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that I mean I think the lyrics are really cool and interesting, and the repetition of short and all the Chiselers references and stuff, but
Dry
definitely,
hump in the hip.
yeah, yeah. But but
But no,
definitely,
wait a second. So
hmm
in the 90s, still, I think a lot of the music industry was tied to those dumb clubs in London where you go and you meet the music writers and you see the other musicians and you meet the people and you act friendly to them, and that's what gets you ahead. And so you hook up with this person and it makes news. A dry hump in the hip club gets your picture in the paper of the enemy or something, or look who was snogging or whatever, you know?
right, yeah, and then the whole "I try to think like you do, act like you do, try to dress like you do. I thought I was you," kind of
Right.
lays it out there pretty good, which apparently is also sort of a reference to a stylistic song. Did you say
Oh,
that's what it
sure.
says in
Yeah.
the annotated? Yeah, something
Yeah. Yeah.
a song called "You Are Everything." But anyway, go
Right.
look at the annotated fall. There's a lot of cool
But
stuff
because
there.
again, coming off the back of his major label stuff, too.
Mm,
I
hmm
tried it.
Right.
Tried it. Look what
Yeah.
happened, you know.
hmm
And they came out of the major label thing relatively okay, except they ended up with a huge tax bill, which I think is part of why everybody's grumpy by about 96 or 97. Is
Uh,
like if you were a member of the fall, you were now responsible for a huge tax debt that had been incurred because the manager didn't set aside the taxes. I'm guessing manager didn't set aside the taxes in escrow from any money they got from the record companies. So the record money just comes through. Manager either takes his cut, hands everything over to them, doesn't tell them they're responsible for their own taxes.
God.
So you owe
Right.
tens of this happens all the time. Happened to the
hmm
Stones. That's why the
Wow.
Stones had to leave, right? I think so. That's why the Stones had to leave um, England,
hmm
because basically it would have bankrupted them to try to catch up on the taxes.
Oh
So in
God.
order to catch
Wow.
up, they
Yeah.
had to not incur any more taxes with British income. I think I've got this right. And so they had to go outside of Britain and reorganize in order to pay off their British taxes.
Oh, right.
Then once I think some of them moved back though, like Charlie Watts stayed living there a bit, but they worked it out eventually but that was what happened to them a little bit.
hmm
So it's not just the fall,
Right.
it's like
That's a pretty common
and in
thing.
the US too. I'm sure it happens all the fucking time.
Mhm. Yeah. 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 That's
It's like,
cool.
but if you're the fall, that's going to cripple you worse than the Stones.
Right.
Like 40
Right.
grand is gonna destroy you. That's, you know what I mean? Like that's gonna be way more than you can pay back. It's not like you
Right.
ever get a check for 40 grand.
Right. And the Stones are in a position that they can go do something that'll make that money quicker. It's not like the Fall could go and like
Right.
play a festival that's going to make up for that or whatever,
Well,
you know.
and I think the Stones are powerful enough to enter into a more comprehensive negotiation with the government
Right,
than the
right.
Fall might. You know,
Uh-huh.
if they can
Yeah,
afford
yeah.
the better lawyers and that kind of thing. And you know, I mean, Mark Smith, he makes he can be a little. He's like those. He's just a little nutty. Like doesn't always make the right call when it comes to the basic stuff. But that's why you do such great art, that unreasonable quality. You know,
Hmm.
I think
Yeah.
sometimes you got to honor that and be like, hey, that's going to spill over. You're going to do dumb shit.
Yeah.
You
Hmm.
know, as long as you're not abusive. You know, I mean, and I don't. His behavior during this period, of course, is highly discussed and controversial. Um,
Hmm.
and it's probably his worst. A lot of his reputation for being truculent and fucked up pretty much comes from this period when he was like this. And it is impressive in many ways that he hit that low, but instead of being like somebody like Kurt Cobain or Amy Winehouse or somebody who just kept going, he picked himself up, dusted himself off, and was like, I can't live like this. I got to stop. And made changes. And his life became more stable and ended up within a few years had long, long serving fall bands. Like there was one band that was 6 years that we think of as like this temporary band. You know what I mean?
Right.
The one that quit in
Hmm.
America was with him for like 5 years, something like
Hmm.
that. And then the last one was like 15.
Wow. Yeah.
So he must
Yeah.
have made some changes,
Hmm.
right, to himself and otherwise. But this was
Yeah.
definitely his low point. And he's dealing with people who are all his age, who've been with him for a while, who are sick of his bullshit. And he's probably sick of theirs too, because they have bullshit too, you know.
Sure. Yeah. No, that's an interesting point that his reputation is somewhat, I think my perception of it, and you could correct me if this isn't exactly accurate, but like the fact that they got onto Matador in the mid '90s, and the fact that they toured here a little bit more, I think there was a generation like mine or people a little bit younger than me who that's was their maybe they'd heard the old fall records, but their real, the way of actually seeing them and hearing their new stuff was the '90s stuff. And
Right.
so those tours where there were all these stories going around, oh, did you hear what he did on stage this time? I think some people, younger people, were probably like, oh, that's who the Fall is
It's
this crazy nut on stage kind of guy, you know?
right. And instead of being like they were in the 80s, they were an incredibly professional outfit, you know, and not that he couldn't like there's a story about when they played the 930 Club, he smashed one of the keyboards because he was frustrated with the sound of it or something like that. But that's standard. That's rock star
Right.
shit.
Bands
I mean,
bands do
that's
that.
you
Yeah.
smash the keyboard, you say to keyboard player, talk to the manager, I'll get you another one, you know.
Yeah.
They everybody knows how to make a show, but he definitely seemed to his personal problems, which may or may not have been as heavy during the 80s, definitely start bleeding over into the functioning of the band, like on a primal level. You know, if you're not completing shows, if you know their band's rehearsing every day, but you're not wandering until 2 because you're at the pub or whatever. That's a different thing. Now, I think he was struggling because I think he was kind of tired of this band the way it sounded. I like this era, but the sound is very clunky to me, square waved. Like there's a lot trying to go on. I enjoy that it doesn't always fit together, but I could see making these records and being like, man, it's just not working. Like the best thing about most of the records from this era is Bricks. And a lot of what makes it great is she is just 100% every second. Like there's no holding back from that chick. Like her guitar parts are feral. She comes up with great vocal lines and shit like that. Screeching, screaming. She's like, and in hindsight, I feel like she's trying to inject energy into something that maybe doesn't have as much. You know, rhythm section's a little long in the tooth, right? More concerned with their home life, maybe a little bit than they are with grinding it out gig after gig and making every note sound like their last. Whereas Brick seems incapable of living any other way. That's probably why she and Smith got along originally, you know, because she's full bore 100% all the time. If you follow her on IG, she's still like this, you know. And
Right.
so the rest of the band more reserved as people and otherwise. And I think maybe there's starting to be a little friction there and it really kind of spills over later. But he was probably struggling with like, I need to end this, but how? Like, I don't want to because I trust and love these people ultimately, but it's gone on too long. We're struggling with kind of finding coherent material. Doesn't really sound great all the time. Trying to inject new blood into it, but that doesn't seem to change things, you know.
Hmm.
And so it ends
Yeah.
with fights on stage.
Right. I do like what you're saying about the way the sound of the band at the time. Like on the annotated thing, there's a really cool way to describe it, which so he talks about how they'd been working on this kind of song itself, or Mark had for like way before this album, but and he says he doesn't seem to have thrown away any of the ideas he had for the song, which is one of the kind of cool things about like and these weird variants. They all have so many things happening in the song, and just complete stops and do something completely else, and then come back
Yeah.
to what they were doing, and that
There's a
kind of makes it
segment that
cool.
sounds like it was recorded at a rehearsal, tacked on to
Yeah.
the end of it. There's
Uh-huh.
a techno interlude. There's
Yeah.
a
Like almost a
weird
video game
spooky
sound.
goth thing.
Uh-huh.
The beginning, which was actually a tape they would play, the beginning of interlude, which was something they would call the tunnel that was played live, and I'd heard it on live tapes at that point. That's part of it. I love it. Like I said, I think it signals the beginning of him doing. You can look and find other tracks like that from this point forward on a lot of the records. Like on the last record, there's the couples versus jobless on New Facts Emerge. This is crazy ass fucking track, right?
Uh-huh.
And um, so you can find these multi-segmented from that point forward, sort of scattered through. It reminds me of Van der Graaf Generator,
Oh, nice.
Peter Hamill, a lot of it. The singing in particular, particularly Mike Bennett's singing, but just the vibe of it is kind of as proggy as they get, you know?
Hmm.
Like, and um, it's the difference in Nagel's programming and sensibilities versus, say, Dave Bush's is interesting too. She's got a slightly different touch. Her brother is Chris Nagel, who's a legendary sound engineer in Manchester and worked with Martin
Oh,
Hannett.
wow.
So
Oh, wow.
she's not just anybody showing up in the band. She's somebody with a long musical pedigree in Manchester. And so she's not, you know what I'm saying? Like you
Yeah.
look at
Uh-huh.
anybody who's in the fall, it seems arbitrary, but then no, these are real people. Like Simon Wollstonecraft was in the original version of the Smiths,
Right.
but he didn't
Right.
like Morrissey's voice.
Uh-huh. Well, he
So he
picked the
joined the
right
so he
place
joined
to
the
go.
fall.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. He didn't even like the
That's funny.
fall. He was done
Uh-huh.
nothing but funk. Like he's into
Uh-huh.
like, American electro funk and chic, things like that. He's not a particularly big punk fan. But I
That's
mean it's
interesting.
like so oh, and yeah, he was in a high school band with the Stone Roses guy. He's also in an early version of Stone Roses. Like that's his
Oh.
legend. And then you end up in the fall. Um, and so these are all really talented musicians, but at some point it does. I love it. I really do. And I like most of Light User Syndrome, but you can tell that it's a little bit of a struggle going on there.
Right.
It's
Right.
it's
Which
like how modern are we? How modern aren't we? I think like you have, I think like for instance, Hanley was always like, why aren't we poppier? Hanley and Wollstonecraft were like, why aren't these hits? Um, Whereas I think Bricks was just looking for something to connect, not necessarily hits. And Smith is like, he wants to sell records, but it's got to be the fall. It's got to be interesting. So there's a lot of different things going on, you know.
hmm. Yeah. Yeah, and I kind of think, I mean, maybe this is projecting a little bit, but I think he kind of like he was always kind of smart enough and creative enough to know that if there is tension happening, leave it in there.
Yeah,
Don't try to smooth it over in the music, which
you
and
might
it
as well
doesn't get
use what you got. Yeah, use
yeah,
what you got
yeah,
there. And it is a
yeah.
tense song. It's like
Hmm.
even the shorter version feels
Hmm.
longer and not in a boring way. It's just got a lot
Yeah.
going on, And then when you
Uh-huh.
listen to like the 7 minute version, and the 6 minute version,
Uh-huh.
it's like it creates a lot of different moods. You can hear what they're trying to do. It's kind of cool. It's like I don't think anybody would. It's funny that they like if they wanted a hit from that record, they should have done Spine Track or something, right? Like that would have been a hit. That would have been a fall hit, top 30 or something like that, whatever they usually would do. And I think they were trying to make a standalone single for Chillinism. So it's more because the CD single I got at the time has 3 versions of it on
Right.
there.
Right.
And so,
Yeah.
I mean, the 7 inches, you flip it over and it's interlude, right?
Right. And one side's 45 and one's 33.
Right, because it's the
Yeah.
7-minute version. So it's
Right.
always meant to be heard as a piece, all these different chunks. And I think even if you get the CD single, that 16-minute experience is kind of the ideal, where it's like it just flows through. The Chiselers thing just keeps coming back. Some weird thing happens, and then they're back. Chiselers.
Right.
And so it's kind of a fun way to hear it like that, you know.
Yeah.
We used to have a joke when I was in the early days of internet, when I was on FallNet. We called it Cheese Alert because we thought that Carl Burns' vocals sounded like he's saying cheese alert, cheese alert, cheese alert, cheese alert. There's a goddamn cheese alert. And so we always referred to that as the song as Cheese Alert.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I do really like the fact that it's like they could have at some point said, okay, let's get the 3 minutes we want out of this and we'll make that the song. But instead, it was like, let's leave everything in. Let's figure out a way to, keep varying this and putting all the ideas we had in there and still, not trimming them out.
It was just Smith.
To me.
It was just Smith pissing off the rest of the band.
Well, that's cool too.
Yeah, I'm just saying. It's like they were like, why is this taking so long? And it's like, well,
right.
Sometimes some of these bands, I'm sort of like, do you know what band you're in? Like, do you know? Do you have any idea? Like, what band do you think you're in? Of course, you're going to be doing some sort of weird single that takes 8 months and has a part where somebody goes, the Chiselers are here. You're in the fucking Fall. Like, they're weird. Like, sometimes, and even reading the books, I wonder if Hanley got to the end and was like, yeah, maybe I should. I don't know, because I just don't know what anybody would expect from a band like that. Like, the Chiselers seems like a Fall record through and through, top to bottom.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
it does not sound like a hit single, but it's a great fucking record and it's really interesting. And it, as I said, I see it as kind of signaling the beginning of an era. He's trying to be a little proggier because he's a prog guy. He likes a lot of that stuff. Henry Cow and Van der Graaf Generator and things like that, Amadou. And so it seems to me to be an attempt like that. And then, as I said, you check in, you'll find that style of multi-segmented song potted throughout the career,
for sure.
There's one on Are You Our Missing Winner that's all at the end. There's this weird medley of acoustic fucked up shit. Then there's the African Man,
right?
Whatever they call it. The Iggy Pop cover that has a big chunk that's live. Then there's this weird screeching part, and then there's another chunk that's smoother, and so on. And so I think it's a technique he started using more because he probably likes longer tracks, but he was, like I said, he's probably spun out on the stories,
right.
Done enough stories.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you picked this one. This is a cool one. I vaguely remembered hearing it, but I definitely didn't sit with it as long as I did with a lot of the stuff around this time period. So it's cool to check it out and see.
I consider it a bit of an underrated, classic for them. Like, I think it's excellent, top-notch Fall. I mean, they got a lot of great tracks, so talking about a top 10, but I think if you wanted to introduce somebody to Fall, you could do worse than to play them this one, because it's funny.
That's for
like
sure.
The whole Stones are short, the Pink Floyd is short. Anybody can latch onto that, but it's also it's literally got everything in it as far as what you hear from a Fall record. Grinding, choppy rhythm guitar riff, cryptic yelled vocals, really a lot of forward momentum, weird hooks, even though they're
great bass line too.
Great bass line. Really swings like crazy, the whole song. So I don't know, but
good.
I don't know, Dick Clark, I give it a 98. You can dance to it.
There we go. Awesome. Well, I hope everybody digs this if they haven't heard it before, and thanks once again for checking out the Spindle.
Yeah. Cheers.
See ya. The Spindle is produced by John Howard and me, Mark Masters. I'm also the audio editor. Our theme song is by the great band Honey Radar. Our podcast is brought to you by Wastoids, audio and video from Hello Merch. Find more podcasts and videos at wastoids.com. And please leave a rating and a review of our podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks.